I'm Megan Lawrence, 34, and I was staring at my security footage at 11:42 p.m. when I saw them. My estranged family, Mom, Scott, and Rachel, huddled on my doorstep looking desperate, not knowing I watched from miles away on my phone. After what they did, stealing my money and destroying my reputation, I should have felt only satisfaction seeing them brought so low. Instead, a storm brewed inside me. Vindication mixed with unwanted curiosity. Why now? After 3 years of silence, I decided not to answer, watching their increasingly frantic knocking with a calmness that surprised even me. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. If family drama and sweet revenge is your thing, hit that like and subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for what these people tried to pull on me next. 3 years ago, my life looked completely different. I was a marketing executive at a prestigious firm in Boston, making 6 figures and living in a beautiful downtown apartment. I had friends, a thriving social life, and what I thought was a loving family. We weren't perfect, no family is, but I believed we had each other's backs. My father died 5 years ago from a heart attack. He was the family's foundation, both emotionally and financially. After he passed, I naturally stepped into the role of family supporter. Mom had never worked outside the home, and my younger brother Scott had always been unstable with money, jumping between jobs. I didn't mind helping. I paid for Mom's roof repairs, covered Scott's car payments when he was between jobs, and even helped fund my nephew's private school tuition. Family takes care of family, Dad always said. I lived by those words. The first crack appeared when Mom called about a small house emergency. The foundation needed repairs at least. That's what she claimed. She asked me to co-sign a loan for $25,000. I agreed without hesitation. 3 months later, another emergency required $30,000 more. By the third request, totaling over $150,000 in less than a year, my financial advisor raised concerns. "This pattern is unusual," she said gently. "Are you certain about where this money is going?" I wasn't, so I drove to Mom's house unannounced one Sunday afternoon. That's when I discovered the truth. There were no home repairs. Not a single contractor had been to the house. Instead, Scott had been gambling heavily. Sports betting, online poker, even trips to Mohegan Sunday. He'd accumulated massive debts, and Mom had been using my co-signed loans to bail him out. When I confronted them at the kitchen table, their expressions shifted from shock to something darker. "What were we supposed to do?" Mom snapped. "Let him get his legs broken by bookies? He's your brother. You make all that money in Boston while we struggle here," Scott added. "What's a few thousand to you? It's not like you have kids to support." "We're family," Mom said, her voice hardening. "Family helps family. Your father would be so disappointed in your selfishness." That last part cut deepest. Dad would never have approved of the gambling, the lies, the manipulation. But they weaponized his memory against me. I refused to sign for any more loans. And that's when the real betrayal began. Scott's wife, Rachel, who had always seemed sweet if somewhat distant, began spreading rumors within our extended family. According to her, I had abandoned them after Dad died, hoarding my money and refusing to help with legitimate family emergencies. Megan changed after she got that big promotion. She told our cousins at a family barbecue I wasn't invited to. Success went to her head. She doesn't think she needs family anymore. The lies spread like wildfire. Aunts who once called me weekly for chats now sent cold, formal texts. Cousins I'd grown up with viewed me with suspicion. Even my grandmother, who had always adored me, asked why I was being so difficult about helping my mother. The final straw came at Thanksgiving. I arrived bearing gifts and food, hoping to mend fences. Instead, I walked into an ambush. The entire extended family was there, and everyone had heard Rachel's version of events. My uncle, Jerry, Dad's brother, pulled me aside. "Your father left this family in your hands," he said gravely. "He'd be heartbroken to see how you failed them." I left in tears, ignored the dozen messages from Mom that followed. "You're so dramatic. Why can't you just help your brother? Everyone's talking about how you ruined Thanksgiving." 2 weeks later, I accepted a job offer in Denver. I sold my Boston apartment, closed my local bank accounts, and changed my phone number. I told no one in my family where I was going. 3 years of silence followed. 3 years during which not a single family member tried to find me through mutual friends or my easily discoverable workplace. 3 years until they appeared, seemingly desperate, on my doorstep. Denver welcomed me with open arms. The mountains offered solace, the dry air, a cleansing burn that seemed to scrub away Boston's humidity and the stickiness of betrayal. I bought a modest house in a quiet neighborhood, painted every room myself, and planted a garden that required daily attention. The routine of watering, weeding, and pruning became my therapy. At work, I thrived. Starting fresh at Mountain View Marketing allowed me to reinvent myself professionally. No one knew me as poor Dan Lawrence's daughter or Scott's responsible sister. I was just Megan, competent, creative, and quietly determined. Within 18 months, I was heading my own team, but some wounds don't heal, even with altitude and distance. One of my first purchases in Denver was an elaborate security system. 8 cameras covering every approach to my house, motion sensors, glass break detectors, and a direct line to local police. The security company representative raised his eyebrows at my specifications. "Planning to store the crown jewels?" he joked. I didn't smile back, just valuing my privacy. The truth was, I half expected Scott to show up drunk on my doorstep, or Mom to appear with another financial emergency. The cameras became my obsession. I checked them before bed, upon waking, and multiple times throughout the day. My phone bristled with notifications for every detected movement. Trust came hard in my new life. Colleagues invited me to happy hours and hiking trips, but I maintained a careful distance. Only Stephanie, a graphic designer who shared my love of true crime podcasts, managed to penetrate my defenses. Even then, she knew only fragments of my story. "Your family sounds toxic," she said one evening over wine on my patio. "But not everyone will betray you like they did." I nodded, not believing her. Twice weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Levine helped, but certain triggers remained raw. Father's Day commercials sent me into tailspin. Dad's birthday, April 12th, became a day to take off work and shut out the world. And each year, the anniversary of his death approached like a slow-moving storm, visible on the horizon weeks before it hit. "Grief and betrayal are tangled for you," Dr. Levine observed. "Your family's actions didn't just hurt you, they corrupted your mourning process for your father." She was right. I couldn't separate the pain of losing Dad from the pain of losing the family he left behind. In my darkest moments, I wondered if they had always been this way, and Dad had simply been the dam holding back their worst impulses. My recent promotion to marketing director should have been a celebration. Instead, it highlighted the emptiness. I had no one to call with the news. No one who had known me before who could appreciate how far I'd come. Stephanie took me out for champagne, but amid the bubbles and congratulations, a hollow feeling persisted. "You should be proud," Stephanie insisted, clinking her glass against mine. "I am," I replied automatically. "Then why do you look like someone just told you your dog died?" I forced a smile. "Just tired. Big responsibility ahead." The truth was more complicated. Success without witnesses felt half real, like a tree falling in an empty forest. Part of me, a part I hated, still wanted my family to see what I had accomplished without them. The night before they appeared on my doorstep was the anniversary of Dad's death. 5 years gone. Stephanie had invited me to a party at her place, a kind attempt at distraction. "Just a few friends. Good wine, no pressure," she promised. I declined, preferring my ritual of isolation. I ordered Thai food, opened a bottle of Dad's favorite whiskey, and scrolled through old photos on my laptop. Around midnight, I checked my security cameras one last time, a habit, nothing more. And there they were, the ghosts of my past, huddled on my doorstep, looking lost and desperate. The security footage felt surreal, like watching a movie about strangers who happened to resemble people I once knew. Mom stood closest to the door, her blonde hair now streaked with significant gray. Her posture stooped in a way I didn't remember. She wore a beige raincoat despite the clear Denver night, clutching her purse with white-knuckled fingers. Scott hung back, shoulders hunched, his once athletic frame now gaunt. He paced in small, tight circles, repeatedly running his hands through thinning hair. He looked over his shoulder every few seconds, scanning the street with paranoid intensity. Most shocking was Rachel, standing protectively with a hand on her visibly pregnant belly. Her face had thinned, the fashionable clothes she once prided herself on replaced by a baggy sweatshirt and maternity jeans. They looked beaten down by life in a way that might have elicited my sympathy 3 years earlier. Now, I felt only cautious suspicion. I watched as Mom rang the doorbell, waited exactly 60 seconds, then rang again. Scott muttered something, gesturing emphatically. The camera's microphone caught fragments. Told you she might not be home. Our last chance, Scott. She has to help us after what? Rachel placed a restraining hand on Scott's arm as his voice rose. Mom stepped back from the door, her face crumpling into an expression I recognized from childhood disappointment, weaponized. They lingered for 17 minutes before retreating to an older model Camry parked on the street. The license plate was from Massachusetts. I zoomed in, noting the rental car sticker in the window. So they'd flown to Denver, not driven. This wasn't an impulsive road trip, but a planned expedition. Curiosity overrode caution. I grabbed my laptop and began digging. My email spam folder contained dozens of messages from variations of Mom's email address she'd been trying different permutations to get past my filters. The subject lines evolved from angry, "You need to call your mother," to desperate, "Please Megan, we need help," over the past 3 months. The most recent, sent just yesterday, read simply, "Please help. We've lost everything." I didn't open any of them. Facebook provided more clues. Though I'd blocked their accounts years ago, I created a throwaway profile to investigate. Mom's page was locked down, but Scott's wife Rachel still kept hers public. The most recent post painted a picture of financial distress. Praying for a miracle today. God tests the faithful. Sometimes you don't know who your true friends are until you lose everything. Vague enough to garner sympathy comments, specific enough to suggest genuine problems. Photos showed them packing boxes. A farewell to Pine Street post suggesting they'd left the family home. A GoFundMe link for the Lawrence family emergency had raised only $340 of a $50,000 goal. My hands shook as I closed the laptop. The investigator in me recognized the mounting evidence of a family in crisis. The wounded daughter in me remembered the elaborate lies they'd told before. I called Stephanie, forgetting the late hour. "They found me," I said when she answered, skipping any greeting. "Who found? Wait, your family." She sounded instantly alert. "Are you okay? Do you need me to come over?" "No, I'm fine. They don't know. I saw them." I described the security footage and my subsequent research. "Megan," Stephanie said carefully, "what are you thinking of doing?" "Nothing," I replied too quickly. "Absolutely nothing." "But you're curious," she pressed. "Otherwise, you wouldn't be investigating." She was right. Despite everything, some stubborn part of me needed to know what had brought them to my door after 3 years of silence. What crisis could be so severe that they'd track me down across the country? "Just be careful," Stephanie cautioned. "People who betrayed you once will do it again. If you decide to make contact, protect yourself first." I promised I would, but after hanging up, I didn't reach out to them. Instead, I settled into my home office chair, connected to the security camera feeds, and waited to see if they would return. They returned at 10:17 the next morning. I was at work but received the motion alert on my phone. Excusing myself from a campaign planning meeting, I huddled in the hallway watching the live feed. This time, the desperation had visibly intensified. Mom's hair was uncombed, her clothes the same as yesterday. Scott paced the walkway, engaged in a heated phone conversation. Though the audio was patchy, his agitation was unmistakable. "I told you we'd have the money by Friday," he hissed into the phone. "Just give us until then." "No, you don't understand. We're working on it. Don't threaten me, Daniel." He ended the call and kicked my garden gnome, sending it tumbling across the lawn. Rachel placed a restraining hand on his arm, glancing nervously at my neighbors' houses. "Keep it together," she whispered, loud enough for the camera to catch. "We can't draw attention." Meanwhile, Mom approached my door with purpose. She rang the bell 3 times in quick succession, then pressed her face close to the peephole. "Megan, honey, if you're in there, please open the door. We know this is awkward after everything, but we really need to talk to you." It's an emergency. The performance continued for several minutes, Mom alternating between pleading and reminiscing about childhood memories designed to tug at heartstrings, while Scott and Rachel hovered nervously behind her. When no response came, Mom sighed heavily and reached into her purse. She withdrew an envelope and carefully tucked it into the doorframe. "We'll come back tomorrow," she announced to the door. "Please read this, Megan." We wouldn't ask if it wasn't life or death. They retreated to their rental car, Scott checking his phone obsessively as they drove away. I left work early, citing a migraine. The envelope remained exactly where Mom had placed it, slightly damp from an afternoon rain shower. I retrieved it using a pair of kitchen tongs, a precaution that would have seemed paranoid to anyone watching. Inside was a 3-page handwritten letter in Mom's familiar looping script. Asterisk, dearest Megan. Asterisk, asterisk, I know we haven't spoken in years, and that's mostly our fault. The things we said and did were unforgivable, and not a day goes by that I don't regret how we treated you. You were always the responsible one, the one we could count on, and we took terrible advantage of that. Asterisk, asterisk, I wish we were reaching out under better circumstances, but we're desperate. Scott's gambling problem got worse after you left. What you discovered was just the beginning. He got involved with some very dangerous people, loan sharks connected to organized crime. We tried everything. Gamblers Anonymous, therapy, even a short stint in rehab, but nothing stuck. Asterisk, asterisk. 2 months ago, these people decided they were tired of waiting for their money. They've taken everything, Megan. The house is gone foreclosed. Your childhood home. All my jewelry, even my wedding rings. We've been staying in motels, moving every few nights. Asterisk. Asterisk Rachel is 7 months pregnant, and the stress is affecting the baby. Yesterday, she started having contractions. The doctor said she needs bed rest, but we have nowhere safe to go. Asterisk. Asterisk. These people want $250,000. We've managed to scrape together about $30,000 by selling everything we own, but it's not enough. They've made it clear that if we don't pay by the end of the week, they'll collect in other ways. Asterisk. Asterisk. I know we have no right to ask, especially after how we treated you, but you're our only hope. We don't expect forgiveness, just mercy. Asterisk. Asterisk. We're staying at the Denver Inn on Colfax, room 118. Please, if you get this, come talk to us, or at least call. My new number is at the bottom of this letter. Asterisk. Asterisk. I love you, sweetheart. I'm so sorry for everything. Asterisk. Asterisk. Mom. Asterisk. I read the letter 3 times, emotions cycling between skepticism, rage, and most troubling, a flicker of concern. The details seemed specific, the desperation authentic. Scott had always been secretive about his gambling, embarrassed yet unable to stop. Involvement with loan sharks wasn't implausible, but the timing felt convenient. I'd recently been featured in Denver Business Monthly for our agency's successful campaign with a major ski resort. The article mentioned my position and salary range. It wouldn't take much internet sleuthing to discover I now had significant resources. I turned to my laptop, searching public records. The family home in Massachusetts had indeed been foreclosed upon 2 months earlier. But a deeper search revealed something interesting. It wasn't the only property in foreclosure. A vacation cabin in New Hampshire and a rental property in Rhode Island had also been seized by creditors. Properties I hadn't known my family owned. My phone rang, startling me. Unknown number with a Denver area code. Hello, is this Megan Lawrence? A male voice inquired when I answered. Who's asking? I countered. This is Denver Credit Union. We're calling about your recent application for a home equity loan. We need to verify some information before proceeding. I hadn't applied for any loan. I think you have the wrong person, I said carefully. You're not looking to borrow $300,000 against your property on Magnolia Street? My blood went cold. I hadn't told my family my address, but they'd found me anyway. And now, apparently, they were attempting to leverage my home for cash. That's fraud, I said flatly. I've made no such application. After ending the call, I sat in my darkening living room, the pieces falling into place. This wasn't a reconciliation attempt. This was a sophisticated con, with me as the target. As if on cue, my security system alerted me to motion at the front door. The camera showed a man I didn't recognize, tall, broad-shouldered, in a dark jacket examining my doorframe with unusual interest. He wasn't Scott or any relative I knew, but he moved with purposeful familiarity around my property, testing a window, peering into my garage. A scout, a professional. Whatever game my family was playing had just become significantly more dangerous. The unfamiliar man returned to a black Escalade parked down the street. I snapped screenshots from my security footage, capturing his face and the vehicle's license plate. Something in his methodical movements suggested training this wasn't some random burglar. I spent the night at Stephanie's apartment, bringing only essential documents and my laptop. Sleep proved elusive as scenarios played through my mind on endless loop. Morning brought no clarity, just deepening paranoia. "You need to call the police," Stephanie insisted over coffee. "And tell them what? That my estranged family might be planning something? That a stranger looked at my house? They'll take a report and do nothing." Nevertheless, I followed her advice. The responding officer, a young woman named Rodriguez, listened politely, jotted notes, and ultimately confirmed my prediction. "Without evidence of an actual crime, there's not much we can do," she explained. "Keep your security system armed, and call immediately if anyone attempts to enter your home." Cold comfort when dealing with what felt increasingly like a coordinated operation. At work, the sense of being watched persisted. Twice, I noticed a car similar to my family's rental in the parking garage. During lunch, a man resembling the Escalade visitor sat 3 tables away, never looking directly at me, but somehow radiating awareness of my every move. I left early, taking a circuitous route home, subway, then bus, then rideshare, watching for tails with newfound paranoia. The rideshare dropped me 2 blocks from home, allowing me to approach on foot through a neighbor's yard. My precautions proved justified. The side door to my garage showed subtle signs of tampering, fresh scratches around the lock, a muddy footprint on the welcome mat I always kept pristine. Someone had attempted entry while I was gone. Retreating to my car, I called the police again. This time, Officer Rodriguez took photographs, dusted for prints, and offered to increase patrols in my neighborhood. Still, her hands remained institutionally tied. "Without catching someone in the act, we're limited in what we can do," she admitted. That evening, reviewing security footage from the past 24 hours revealed a chilling development. Scott had returned with the Escalade man. The audio captured fragments of their conversation. "Looks solid. Good alarm system, though. Can you get past it? For the right price, I can get past anything. But remember our deal." Yeah. You'll get your cut. 50%, Scott. This isn't negotiable. "Daniel, come on. After what you owe me? You're lucky I'm not taking it all." Daniel. The same name Scott had mentioned during his angry phone call. The pieces were aligning into a disturbing pattern. I needed professional help beyond what the police could provide. Through a colleague's recommendation, I contacted James Mercer, a private investigator specializing in financial fraud cases. His office, a Spartan space above a Vietnamese restaurant, seemed unpromising, but his sharp questions and military bearing inspired confidence. $3,000 for a preliminary investigation, he stated after hearing my situation. $5 more if you want me to dig deep. I'll need names, dates, locations, everything you can give me." I wrote the check without hesitation. "Stay somewhere else until I have initial findings," he advised. "If your family's working with professional criminals, your safety could be at risk." Stephanie welcomed me back for another night, but I could see the strain my presence placed on her small apartment and roommate relationship. "I've booked a hotel," I told her over dinner. "The Brown Palace. Under a different name. Isn't that expensive? Better than being exposed." Sleep came no easier in the luxury hotel. Nightmares invaded what little rest I managed. Dad's disappointed face, Scott's desperate anger, Mom's manipulative tears. In the worst dream, I opened my front door to find them all dead on my doorstep, their blood staining my welcome mat. I woke gasping, sheets twisted around my legs, the hotel room disorienting in pre-dawn darkness. My phone showed a text from James Mercer. "Preliminary findings ready. Meet 8 a.m. 3 hours later, I sat across from him in his office, a manila folder between us on the desk. "Your brother is in deep with Daniel Russo." James began without preamble. Russo runs a mid-level loan operation with connections to organized crime in Boston, Providence, and now Denver. He's been expanding westward for the past year. What's my family's connection? Your brother owes him approximately $400,000. But here's where it gets interesting. They've been working together on something more sophisticated than a simple loan. James slid a photograph across the desk. It showed Scott shaking hands with the Escalade man Daniel Russo outside an upscale Denver restaurant. This was taken 2 weeks ago, before your family supposedly arrived, desperate at your door. The implications hit like a physical blow. They'd been in Denver for at least 2 weeks, planning, coordinating. The desperate doorstep scene was theater, the letter a calculated prop. There's more, James continued. The foreclosure on your family home? Technical truth, but misleading. The property in foreclosure was an investment property your brother purchased 3 years ago after you left Boston. Your mother still owns her home free and clear. Each revelation felt like another betrayal stacked upon the original. The family home I'd grieved, the house where Dad had died, had never been at risk. Mom had lied about that too. And Rachel's pregnancy? James hesitated. I can't confirm with absolute certainty, but my contact at the Denver Inn reports seeing her remove what appeared to be a prosthetic belly when entering their room. They believed no one was watching. The elaborate charade they'd constructed, the desperate family on my doorstep, the pregnancy, the imminent danger was a fiction designed to manipulate my emotions and separate me from my money. Have they done this before? I asked, voice steady despite my churning stomach. I found evidence of similar attempts with 2 other relatives. Your cousin Jennifer in Chicago gave them $50,000 last year. Your Aunt Margaret in Florida, about $30,000 6 months ago. Both approached with dramatic stories of imminent threat. The family business had evolved from simple loan fraud to sophisticated emotional manipulation. And now, with Russo's involvement, they'd escalated to potential home invasion. What do they want from me, exactly? James leaned forward, expression grave. Based on the loan application attempt and some conversations my sources overheard, they're after about $500,000, enough to pay off Russo and set themselves up somewhere new. I nodded, thoughts crystallizing into determination. I need everything you found in writing, and I want you to keep digging specifically into Russo's operation and any legal vulnerabilities my family has created. James raised an eyebrow. Planning something? Yes, I replied, a cold clarity settling over me. I'm going to give my family exactly what they deserve. James Mercer's full report arrived 2 days later, 43 pages of meticulously documented deception. Each page deepened my understanding of just how elaborate my family's scheme had become. The foreclosure I discovered was indeed on an investment property, one of 6 Scott had purchased using fraudulent loan applications over the past 3 years. He'd been running a small-scale real estate scam, buying properties with falsified income documents, taking equity loans against them, then allowing them to foreclose. The proceeds funded his gambling and fueled a lifestyle far beyond what his sporadic employment should have allowed. Mom's supposed financial distress was equally fabricated. Her social media presence under an alternate name, Ellen Lawrence Winters, incorporating her maiden name, showed a very different reality. Mediterranean cruises, a renovated kitchen, designer handbags. Far from the desperate woman on my doorstep, she appeared to be living comfortably, posting just 2 weeks earlier about her lovely garden party at the family home that supposedly had been foreclosed upon. Most disturbing was Rachel's role. Her pregnancy was indeed fake, a silicone prosthetic purchased online for theatrical use. The same prosthetic appeared in carefully angled photos shared with various family members, always with captions emphasizing her difficult pregnancy and medical complications. A convenient prop to amplify sympathy and urgency. James had even managed to access some of their text messages through methods he described only as semi-legal but conclusive. Mom to Scott, make sure you look exhausted when we go back tomorrow. Megan always had a soft spot for you when you seemed vulnerable. Scott to Rachel, Daniel says if we can get into the house, we should check her office first. Financial documents, checkbooks, that kind of thing. Rachel to Scott, don't forget Aunt Claire sent us another $5 Kelvins. Tell your mother to look appropriately grateful when we thank her. They'd been working their extended family systematically, extracting thousands from one relative before moving to the next, using the same playbook of medical emergencies, threatened violence, and imminent homelessness. The most chilling discovery was a document on Scott's cloud storage, a crude forgery of my signature on power of attorney forms. They weren't just after a one-time payment. They wanted control of my finances. Daniel Russo's involvement added a more dangerous dimension. His criminal record included charges for extortion and assault, though most had been reduced or dismissed through legal maneuvering. He specialized in using foreclosed properties for money laundering, which explained his partnership with Scott. My brother provided distressed properties. Russo provided the cash to purchase them through shell companies, creating a laundering mechanism for his loan operation proceeds. James's notes suggested they'd been tracking my financial success for months. My promotion had been mentioned in an industry newsletter. My home purchase was in public records. Even my investment portfolio had been researched. Scott had somehow obtained my quarterly statement from a financial advisor I'd briefly consulted after arriving in Denver. Armed with this knowledge, I scheduled an emergency session with Dr. Levine. I knew they were capable of betrayal, I told her, pacing her office. But this level of calculation, this sustained effort to manipulate and exploit family members, I can't reconcile this with the people who raised me. People rarely show their complete selves to anyone, she replied carefully. The family you remember and the family that exists now may be very different. Did they change? Or was I just blind to who they really were? She considered this. Perhaps both. Your father's presence may have moderated their worst impulses. His death, combined with financial pressure, could have revealed character flaws that were always present but contained. The possibility that Dad had been the only thing standing between my family and their true nature hit hard. Had he known? Had he spent his life protecting me from them, only for the safeguard to dissolve with his death? What are you planning to do with this information? Dr. Levine asked. I could go to the police, I said. The attempted break-in, the forged documents, the fraud against other family members, there's enough for criminal charges. But that's not what you want. I stopped pacing. No. I want them to face me. I want them to know that I see through every lie, every manipulation, and I want them to understand they can never hurt me again. Dr. Levine nodded. You're seeking closure, not just justice. I need both, I admitted. And I have a plan to get them. Back at my hotel, I initiated the next phase. First, I called Catherine Chen, a lawyer specializing in fraud cases whom James had recommended. I need to protect myself legally while setting a trap, I explained. How far can I go without crossing any lines? Catherine's expertise proved invaluable. We spent hours outlining a strategy that would expose my family's scheme while insulating me from any legal repercussions. Her connections with the Denver DA's office provided another crucial element, a detective specializing in fraud and extortion cases. Detective Williams was a steady presence, his methodical approach complementing Catherine's strategic thinking. Together, they helped refine my plan into something both legally sound and likely to succeed. You understand this could permanently sever any possibility of reconciliation with your family, Detective Williams cautioned. I thought of the forged signature, the planned invasion of my home, the systematic exploitation of family members' trust. There's nothing left to reconcile, I replied. These people are strangers wearing familiar faces. The pieces were in place. Now I needed my family to make their move. That evening, I sent a text to the number listed at the bottom of Mom's letter. Asterisk, I found your letter. I need time to think, but I'm willing to talk. Come to my house tomorrow at 7 p.m. Come alone, no Scott, no Rachel, definitely no one else. Just you and me, Mom, like it used to be. Asterisk. Her reply came almost instantly. Asterisk. Oh, Megan, thank you, sweetheart. I'll be there. Just me, I promise. We have so much to talk about. Love you. Asterisk. Another lie in a tapestry of deception. My security cameras showed her forwarding the message to Scott less than 2 minutes later, followed by an animated 3-person discussion in the motel parking lot. They would all come tomorrow. And Daniel Russo would likely be watching nearby, ready to capitalize on whatever opportunity presented itself. Perfect. Let them bring their entire operation. The bigger the deception, the more satisfying its collapse would be. My home transformed into command central over the next 24 hours. James Mercer supervised the installation of additional hidden cameras more sophisticated than my consumer-grade security system in every room. Small enough to escape casual detection, powerful enough to capture crystal-clear video and audio from multiple angles. Military grade, he explained, adjusting a pinhole lens disguised as a light fixture screw. Records directly to secure cloud storage, accessible only with your authentication. Catherine and Detective Williams established legal parameters. The detective couldn't officially participate in the sting, not without warrants based on more substantial evidence, but he would be parked nearby, ready to intervene if things escalated toward violence. Catherine would monitor remotely, providing real-time legal guidance through an earpiece disguised as a hearing aid. Remember, she cautioned, don't make specific accusations about Russo without rock-solid evidence in hand. Organized crime figures are notoriously litigious when it serves them. Understood, I replied, reviewing the script we'd developed together. I'll focus on what we can prove conclusively. The most elaborate preparations involved creating a convincing financial mirage. I gathered old bank statements, editing them digitally to suggest accessible liquidity of nearly $1 million. Expired checkbooks, fancy letterhead from wealth management firms, and property documents were artfully arranged in my home office desk, the most likely target for any snooping. Make it tempting but not obvious, James advised. Like you're security conscious, but not paranoid. The house itself required strategic modification. I wanted my family to feel safe enough to reveal their true intentions, which meant disabling certain security features while keeping others secretly operational. The main alarm system would appear to function normally but wouldn't actually trigger. Certain doors would seem to lock but could be easily manipulated. It's about creating a controlled environment, Detective Williams explained. Give them enough rope to hang themselves legally. Stephanie provided emotional support throughout the preparations. She helped stage the house, making it appear I'd been living there continuously rather than staying at a hotel. Fresh groceries in the refrigerator, mail scattered on the counter. Laundry in the hamper, details that suggested normal habitation. Are you sure you want to confront them alone? She asked, arranging magazines on my coffee table. I could be here. Pretend to be a roommate or something. Too risky, I replied. If Russo is involved, I don't want you anywhere near this place. The thought of my friend endangered by my family's schemes was unbearable. Then I'll be at the cafe across the street, she insisted. Close enough to call for help if needed. Far enough to stay safe. I knew better than to argue with her determined expression. As evening approached, I conducted role-playing exercises with Catherine, preparing for various scenarios. She took turns playing my mother, Scott, and Rachel, throwing increasingly manipulative lines at me. After everything we've done for you, your father would be so disappointed. We're family, doesn't that mean anything to you anymore? The baby could die if we don't get help. With each emotional hit, I practiced maintaining composure, sticking to facts, and avoiding the emotional quicksand they'd try to drag me into. Good. Catherine nodded after a particularly vicious exchange. You didn't take the bait. Years of therapy make for expensive armor, I replied with a grim smile. James's surveillance detected activity by mid-afternoon. The black Escalade confirmed as Russo's vehicle circled my block 3 times before parking 2 streets over. A different man from the previous surveillance conducted a walking patrol of the neighborhood, paying particular attention to police presence and security cameras on neighboring homes. They're being cautious, James observed, monitoring feeds from his laptop. Professional. Does that change anything? I asked. Just confirms we're dealing with experienced operators. Stick to the plan. At 6 o'clock, I activated all recording devices, tested my communication link with Catherine, and took my position. The stage was set. Detective Williams confirmed his location 3 blocks away, close enough for quick response, far enough to avoid detection. James departed through the back door, joining a surveillance position in a rented apartment with line of sight to my home. Stephanie texted her arrival at the cafe across the street. Alone in my living room, I practiced controlled breathing exercises Dr. Levine had taught me. This confrontation represented 3 years of suppressed anger, betrayal, and unprocessed grief. The temptation to lash out, to hurt them as they'd hurt me, simmered beneath my practiced calm. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about protection for myself and for any future victims they might target. It was about truth and consequences. It was about finally closing a chapter that had poisoned my life for too long. My security app chimed at 6:45 p.m. Right on schedule, a rental car approached my driveway. 3 figures emerged: Mom, Scott, and Rachel. Her fake pregnancy bump prominently displayed. Despite promising to come alone, Mom had brought her co-conspirators exactly as I'd predicted. Their faces showed a mixture of anxiety and anticipation as they approached my front door. My phone buzzed with a text from James. Russo watching from vehicle at corner. Armed security type with him. The danger level had just increased significantly. I sent a prearranged signal to Detective Williams, who acknowledged and called for backup to move closer, still maintaining cover. The doorbell rang. 3 familiar strangers waited on my doorstep, unaware of the trap they were walking into. With one final deep breath, I opened the door to face my family for the first time in 3 years. Megan! Mom lunged forward, arms outstretched for an embrace I skillfully sidestepped. You said you'd come alone, I stated flatly, eyes moving from her to Scott and Rachel. Rachel's hand rested protectively on her prosthetic baby bump. I know, sweetie. But when I told them you'd reached out, they insisted on coming. Mom's eyes darted past me, scanning the interior of my home. We've all missed you so much. I gestured them inside, maintaining careful distance. Let's not do this on the doorstep. They filed in, Scott's eyes immediately cataloging valuables, while Rachel moved with the exaggerated caution of a woman in late-stage pregnancy. I directed them to the living room, deliberately seating them on the sofa facing away from the most obvious camera. Beautiful home, Mom commented, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. You've done well for yourself. Marketing director now, I replied, offering no additional information. Would anyone like water? Only Rachel accepted, using the opportunity to emphasize her condition, with a hand on her back and a small groan as she shifted position. The Oscar-worthy performance nearly made me laugh. So, I began after returning with water. Your letter mentioned some trouble. Mom launched into a perfectly rehearsed narrative of escalating calamities: Scott's gambling relapse, dangerous loan sharks, the foreclosure, Rachel's difficult pregnancy, threats of violence. Her voice cracked at precisely the right moments, tears materializing on cue. Scott stared at the floor in practiced shame, while Rachel tenderly rubbed her belly. We wouldn't ask if we had anywhere else to turn, Mom concluded. We've lost everything, Megan, everything, except the house on Maple Street, I replied casually. A microsecond of confusion flickered across Mom's face before she recovered. The foreclosure was finalized last month. Not your house, I clarified. I meant your actual home, the one you hosted a garden party at 2 weeks ago. The foreclosure was on Scott's investment property. Silence descended, heavy and charged. Scott straightened, eyes narrowing. What are you talking about? He demanded. Your Instagram is still public, Mom. Ellen Lawrence Winters isn't exactly an impenetrable alias. Mom's expression hardened, the vulnerable facade evaporating. You've been spying on us? Let's call it due diligence. I leaned forward. The same way you've been researching my finances for months. Scott stood abruptly. This was a mistake. Let's go. Sit down, Scott, I commanded with unexpected authority. We're just getting started. To my surprise, he complied, exchanging glances with Rachel. You seemed so concerned about Rachel's pregnancy, I continued, especially the complications requiring bed rest. Yet somehow she managed a cross-country flight and has been remarkably mobile for someone in medical distress. Rachel's hand froze on her stomach. The doctor cleared me for. The prosthetic belly company cleared you for nothing, I interrupted. Their product disclaimer specifically mentions not wearing it on flights due to pressure changes. Color drained from Rachel's face. You don't know what you're talking about. Actually, I do. I know about the foreclosed investment properties, the fraudulent loan applications, the money from Aunt Claire and Cousin Jennifer, and I know about your partnership with Daniel Russo. Scott bolted upright again. Who the fuck have you been talking to? Language, Scott, Mom interjected reflexively. Megan, these accusations are completely— Save it. I cut her off. Everything I've said is documented. My lawyer has copies. So does a detective with the Denver PD's Financial Crimes Unit. The atmosphere shifted palpably. Calculation, replacing indignation in their expressions. Mom recovered first, switching tactics with practiced ease. "We've made mistakes," she admitted, voice softening. "Serious ones. But the danger from Russo is real. He's dangerous, Megan. He's threatened us." "Threatened his business partner?" I raised an eyebrow. "Because that's what Scott is. You've been working with Russo on property fraud for over a year." Scott's eyes darted to the window, perhaps checking for Russo's surveillance. "You don't understand the situation." "Then explain it to me. Explain the forged power of attorney documents with my signature that you created. Explain the attempted break-in at my house 3 days ago." Rachel gasped, genuinely surprised. Scott shot her a warning look. "We didn't break in anywhere," Mom insisted. "No, you just had Russo's associate case, my house for vulnerabilities." I retrieved my phone, pulling up the security image. This man, Daniel Russo's employee, according to Denver PD. The same man Scott met with 2 weeks ago at Lorenzo's restaurant. Scott's composure cracked. "You don't know who you're messing with. Neither do you, apparently. Russo's using you, Scott. Once he's extracted whatever value you have, including whatever you thought you could get from me, you're disposable." Mom tried another approach, reaching for my hand. I withdrew it before she could make contact. "Sweetheart, we're still family. Despite everything. Your father would—" "Don't you dare invoke Dad," I snapped, the first genuine emotion breaking through my controlled facade. "He would be disgusted by what you've become." "We just need enough to pay off Russo," Scott interjected. "Then we can start fresh. All of us." "How much?" I asked, voice neutral again. They exchanged glances, hope kindling. Scott answered, "300,000 would clear everything. We'd never bother you again. And if I gave you this money, what assurance would I have that Russo wouldn't come directly after me? You've practically gift-wrapped me as a target." "We'd make sure he understood you're off limits," Scott promised quickly. "Family protection. Family protection," I repeated slowly. "Like the protection you offered Aunt Claire? Or Jennifer?" Mom attempted damage control. "Those were different situations." "Were they? Or are they just earlier versions of the same scam you're running on me?" Silence confirmed my suspicion. I stood, moving to my desk where I'd prepared an envelope. "I've made a decision," I announced, returning with the envelope. "Here's what I can offer." Scott reached for it eagerly, but I held it just out of reach. "First, there are conditions. I need to see exactly what you owe and to whom. I want documentation of the threats. And I want to speak with Russo directly." "That's not possible," Scott replied too quickly. "Why not? He's parked 2 blocks away right now." Shock registered on all 3 faces. Mom recovered first. "How could you possibly know that?" "The same way I know about the fake pregnancy, the garden party, and the investment properties. I've been investigating you since you first appeared on my doorstep." I placed the envelope on the coffee table. 200,000. It's all I can access quickly. Take it or leave it. Scott snatched the envelope, ripping it open to verify the contents, bank statements, access codes to accounts, a cashier's check for $50,000 as good faith. "This could work," he muttered, calculating quickly. "With what we've already gathered, it would be enough." "Already gathered?" I prompted. Scott realized his mistake too late. Rachel intervened, playing peacemaker. "What Scott means is, we've been selling our possessions to raise funds," she explained. "Every little bit helps. Like the money from Claire and Jennifer? The funds from the other foreclosed properties?" I pressed. Mom switched tactics again, her expression hardening. "You've always been so judgmental, Megan. So perfect. Some of us don't have your advantages, your opportunities." "I made my opportunities," I corrected. "I didn't steal them from family members." "Is that what this is about? Still bitter that we asked for help when we needed it?" Scott's voice rose. "You abandoned us after Dad died." "I abandoned you?" Incredulity tinged my voice. "You stole from me, lied to me, used Dad's memory to manipulate me, then destroyed my reputation within the family when I wouldn't give you more." Rachel shifted uncomfortably. "That may have gone too far," she admitted quietly. Mom shot her a venomous look. "You know what?" Scott interjected. It doesn't matter. We have what we came for. He waved the envelope. This is legally binding, right? These accounts are accessible? Everything's legitimate, I assured him. Unlike your operation with Russo. At the mention of Russo's name again, Scott's phone buzzed. He checked it, then nudged Mom. We should go. Daniel's getting impatient. Daniel? I repeated innocently. I thought you said Russo wasn't involved directly. Scott realized his second slip. Different Daniel. Of course, I nodded, then raised my voice slightly. Just like it's a different Daniel Russo who's been running property fraud schemes in 3 states and threatening your family. The deliberate mention of Russo's full name and crimes picked up clearly by the hidden microphones was the signal Catherine and I had arranged. On cue, the front and back doors opened simultaneously. Detective Williams entered from the front, accompanied by 2 uniformed officers. James Mercer came through the back, another detective with him. What the hell is this? Scott demanded, jumping to his feet. Scott Lawrence? Detective Williams approached. I'm Detective Williams, Denver PD. We'd like to ask you some questions about certain financial transactions and threats reported against Miss Lawrence here. Mom's face contorted with betrayal. You set us up. No, Mom, I corrected quietly. You set yourselves up. I just provided the stage. As the officers began separating my family members for questioning, Scott made a desperate lunge toward me. You manipulative bitch. You'll regret this. The officers restrained him immediately, adding threatened assault to his growing list of problems. Rachel, in a moment of self-preservation, began distancing herself from the scheme. I was just going along with what they said, she insisted, hands raised. Scott and Diane planned everything. Outside, commotion erupted as additional officers intercepted Russo's Escalade attempting to flee the scene. Through the window, I watched the man who had threatened my family and planned to exploit me being placed in handcuffs. Mom, uncharacteristically silent, stared at me with cold fury as an officer explained her rights. Daniel Russo has already implicated Scott in multiple fraud schemes. Detective Williams informed me quietly. Your brother was in much deeper than even you realized. Russo was never going to be satisfied with any payment. The enormity of what I'd narrowly escaped washed over me. My family hadn't just been trying to con me out of money, they'd potentially placed me in physical danger from a vindictive criminal. As they were led away, Mom finally spoke. He was right about you. Who was right? I asked, despite myself. Your father. He always said you were too smart for your own good. Her smile held no warmth. Too bad he's not here to see his perfect daughter turn on her family. The barb was designed to wound, to leave me doubting my actions. Instead, it confirmed I'd made the right choice. Goodbye, Mom, I said simply. I watched from my doorway as the people who had once been my family were placed in separate police vehicles. Not with satisfaction or vindication, but with a profound sense of closure. The ties that had bound us, both loving and toxic, were finally, irrevocably severed. Stephanie appeared at my side, having witnessed everything from across the street. Are you okay? She asked, slipping a supportive arm around my shoulders. I considered the question carefully. No, I admitted. But I will be. The legal proceedings dragged on for months. Daniel Russo, facing charges in multiple states, quickly offered information on Scott's involvement in exchange for sentencing considerations. My brother's operations proved more extensive than even my investigation had uncovered. At least 8 properties purchased, fraudulently, laundered money flowing through accounts in 3 states, and a pattern of family-targeted financial exploitation stretching back nearly 4 years. Scott pled guilty to reduced charges, accepting a 5-year sentence rather than risk trial. Rachel, claiming minimal involvement and leveraging her actual pregnancy, discovered during booking, received probation and community service. She filed for divorce while Scott awaited sentencing. Mom's case proved most complicated. The evidence against her was substantial, but less clear-cut than Scott. Her manipulation had largely stayed within legal gray areas, relying on emotional leverage rather than explicit fraud. After much deliberation, and against Catherine's advice, I declined to pursue charges against her. She's already lost everything, I explained to Catherine over coffee. Her son's going to prison. Her reputation is destroyed, and her remaining years will be spent knowing exactly why her family fell apart. That's surprisingly merciful, Catherine observed. It's not mercy. I corrected. It's freedom for me. Pursuing charges means staying entangled with her, reliving the betrayal through testimony and hearings. I'm ready to move forward. Despite my decision, Mom was charged with lesser counts based on other victims' statements. She accepted a plea agreement, 2 years probation, restitution payments, and mandatory counseling. 3 weeks after her sentencing, I received a letter from the county jail where she awaited processing. Megan. I don't expect forgiveness. What I did was unforgivable. After your father died, something broke inside me. Fear replaced love. Desperation replaced dignity. I told myself I was protecting Scott, but really, I was enabling his worst impulses while indulging my own asterisk. You were always the strong one, like your father. I resented that strength eventually, even as I exploited it. I don't know if you'll read this or if it matters, but you should know one thing. Your father would have been proud of how you protected yourself. He always worried about Scott and me taking advantage of your generous nature. I'll respect your boundaries from now on. You won't hear from me again unless you reach out first. Mom. I folded the letter carefully, placing it in my desk drawer without responding. Was it another manipulation or genuine remorse? Perhaps both. Either way, maintaining the boundary felt right. Meanwhile, life continued. I sold my house, the site of so much trauma and deception, purchasing a craftsman bungalow in a different Denver neighborhood. The new place had fewer bedrooms but more character, with a garden that required daily attention, a metaphor not lost on my therapist. Growth requires consistent care, Dr. Levine observed during one session. Both plants and people. 6 months after the arrests, I found myself hosting a small dinner party, something unimaginable during my years of self-imposed isolation. Stephanie brought her new boyfriend, James Mercer, attended with his husband, and Catherine came bearing an expensive bottle of wine. Even Detective Williams stopped by briefly, sharing news that Russo's operation had been completely dismantled, based partly on evidence gathered from my case. You helped more people than you know, he told me before departing. His organization had targeted dozens of vulnerable families. After the guests departed, I stood in my new kitchen, surveying the evidence of connection: empty wine glasses, plates with cake crumbs, napkins bearing lipstick marks. For years, I had defined family solely through blood relation, measuring my isolation by the absence of those genetic connections. But around my table that evening had been people who chose to be present, who valued me without condition or expectation. My security system chimed motion detected on the front porch. Old habits triggered momentary panic before I remembered I'd set up a new camera to monitor package deliveries. Reaching for my phone to check the alert, I hesitated, then deliberately set it down unchecked. Whatever waited outside could wait until morning. Tonight belonged to the present, not to surveillance or hypervigilance. The healing wasn't complete, might never be fully complete. Certain triggers still activated my defenses. Unexpected financial questions, family-themed holiday commercials, even the specific tone Mom used when attempting manipulation. But the triggers no longer controlled my reactions. I recognized them, acknowledged the associated emotions, then chose my response rather than being driven by programmed fear. Dr. Levine called this progress. I called it freedom. I enrolled in a support group for family estrangement, discovering I wasn't alone in establishing boundaries with toxic relatives. The stories shared there, some heartbreaking, some darkly humorous, normalized an experience I had previously considered unique to my dysfunctional family. The hardest part, shared one group member, is accepting that the family you wished for doesn't exist. You have to grieve that ideal before you can build something new. His words resonated deeply. I had spent years mourning my father's death while simultaneously grieving the loss of the family I thought we had been. Accepting that this idealized version had never truly existed freed me to create authentic connections without the weight of impossible expectations. When the opportunity for a promotion arose, a position that would require relocation to Seattle, I accepted without hesitation. The old Megan would have worried about moving further from family. The new Megan recognized that geographic distance was merely symbolic when emotional boundaries were already firmly established. I didn't leave a forwarding address for my mother or extended family. Not from fear or anger, but from the quiet certainty that this chapter had closed. Perhaps someday, under different circumstances, limited contact might be possible. But that decision would be mine to make, based on healing rather than obligation. The morning of my departure for Seattle, I hosted one final breakfast for my Denver friends. Stephanie cried openly, while James made dad jokes to lighten the mood. Catherine presented me with a business card for a Seattle colleague just in case, though we both hoped no legal interventions would be necessary in my new life. As they helped load the last boxes into my car, Stephanie asked, "Will you miss this place?" I considered the question, looking at the home I'd created, the garden I'd nurtured, the people who had supported me through the darkest period of my life. "I'll miss certain parts," I answered honestly, "but I'm taking the most important things with me." "Your killer shoe collection?" she joked through tears. The knowledge that I can build something real, something healthy, wherever I go. I hugged her tightly. And friends who visit with appropriate bribes of wine and chocolate. Later, driving toward my new beginning, my phone chimed with a security alert from the system I'd left active until the new owners took possession. For a moment, old anxiety flared. Had they returned despite everything? Was I still being watched, tracked, targeted? I pulled into a rest stop, taking slow, measured breaths before checking the notification. Just the real estate agent dropping off final paperwork. I silenced the app and deleted it from my phone. The cameras could keep watching, but I was finished looking back. The road ahead stretched toward mountains and ocean, toward new challenges and connections. I couldn't predict what waited in Seattle, but for the first time in years, uncertainty felt like an adventure rather than a threat. Sometimes the hardest people to walk away from are the ones who should never have been allowed to stay. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't confronting your past, but choosing to build a future unburdened by its weight. And sometimes, the family you need isn't the one you're born into, but the one you carefully, intentionally create. What about you? Have you ever had to make the difficult choice to walk away from toxic relationships? Drop a comment below, sharing your experience or how you handled family betrayal. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life stories of overcoming adversity. And don't forget to share with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to choose their own well-being. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to let go.